But there are new techniques that enable us, we hope, to provide much greater insight into someone's cardiovascular health during these scans. And another area is really trying to understand a lot of the biomarkers of chronic sort of metabolic conditions. So we're able to now measure visceral fat volumetrically everywhere in the body, liver fat to 2 decimal points, pericardial fat, so the fat around the heart muscle obviously is highly correlated with heart attacks.
Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we're getting real personal, and there's nothing more personal than getting a whole body MRI scan and then going through the results with you. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about my results, why I decided to get an MRI, and what action items I've taken. And then we're going to cut over to an interview with Andrew Lacy, who is the CEO and founder of Preneuvo, the company pioneering proactive whole body imaging for the early detection of cancer and other diseases. Under Lacy's leadership, the company has expanded across North America, establishing Preneuvo as a recognized and trusted proactive healthcare service to both patients and referring clinicians. So at any time during today's recording, if you're like, I want to get in on this sounds so cool, you can go to prenuvo.com/Leanne. That's prenuvo.com/Leanne and get $300 off your whole body scan. So a couple of pieces here. I am not getting paid to share this content. I found Prenuvo on Instagram. I was going through Reels, and a lady by the name of Jessica said that she got a whole body scan and she found all these things. And I was like, how do I get this? This sounds so cool. And I reached out to Prenuvo. They gave me a free scan. So I did not pay for my scan. But after I had my scan, I chatted with my husband, Kevin, and we decided to get him a scan because I thought, babe, we need to have this data for you. And this has just been such an illuminating, encouraging process. And I wanted him to have one too. So we did pay for his scan. And it's important for me to share these things with you because you have to know that a lot of podcasters, YouTubers, influencers get stuff for free. And it makes it a lot more accessible when you don't have to pay for it. But when we're talking about scans and these things and medical approaches, important that I'm always super honest. So I did not pay for my scan, but we paid for Kevin's scan, and I would do it again. And in fact, I'm going to do it again in 2 to 3 years because that's when I need to get another scan. And I think Kevin's at 3 years, and we will happily pay for this for the details that we got. So a full body MRI. Basically, I walked into Prenuvo. It is not a medical procedure type of place. If you are concerned about medical establishments, I can tell you from the moment I walked in, I just felt so special. And if you've had experiences in the past that have made you feel really yucky, Prenuvo is not that. And I was super comfortable in the machine, though I didn't super love being still for that long. Kevin said he didn't mind at all. And he was like happy to stay in there. They play Netflix for you. They take images. And Kevin got his results the next day. Mine took about 2 to 3 weeks, I believe. And I was really nervous to get my results only because I was seeking answers. So the reason why I was so drawn to get this scan is I've been dealing with inflamed, I want to say lymph nodes, but I really didn't think it was a lymph node. These like bumps on my neck. And it's been going on for almost a year. I've gone to doctors about it. I've chatted with nurse practitioners about it. And I kind of got dismissed every time. And I was just so frustrated that when I saw this Jessica on Instagram talking about this whole body scan, I thought, well, if this is something really serious, I'd rather know about it than be spinning my wheels on this. And so when I got my report, I was really nervous to open it up, but also really excited to finally have answers. And though I got no answers when it came to my neck, which was actually a good thing, in fact, they checked through my thyroid. The thyroid looked great. Nothing was viewed, no soft tissue issues. Lymph nodes were checked. Salivary glands, however, would not show up. And where those little lumps are is right around my salivary gland. So even the not having information, like not seeing lymph as being an issue, not seeing the thyroid as an issue, it kind of eliminated a lot of processes. And I was able to find a doctor that specialized in salivary gland imaging and understanding. And I have an appointment with them to kind of go through what's going on with this. And so I was able to kind of, through process of elimination, go directly to a dermatologist and chat with them about a fluid-filled cyst and kind of go that route. I also really loved on my scan that it gave me some real answers in regards to neck pain that I've had since about 2017. And what I loved about when I got the scan, I got to sit down with a doctor and go through the results and ask him a ton of questions. He was so patient with me because I came fully prepared, and we talked about my neck, and he asked an important question that I had not put two and two together. And he said, in 2017, when the neck pain started, had you been doing a lot of work? Well, 2017 was the year that I was writing all of my books. And yes, I was doing a ton of work. In fact, I was doing a ton of work in an RV where I didn't have a desk and I was looking down at my computer. And that's when my neck pain started. And so we went through the results of my neck and determined that there was nothing truly concerning about the neck, but that I did have some arthritic issues that needed to be assessed with my chiropractor. So I then took those images directly to my chiropractor, showed him my MRI results, and he knew exactly how to start adjusting me to assist with this. Now, it's been about 3 months since my scan, and I can happily report that for the first time since 2017, I am no longer having neck pain. Yes, this is such a huge win. I have to tell you, like, the amount of pain I've been in. And if you know that nagging pain that just doesn't go away and you've tried everything, this is phenomenal. So a lot of it had to do with actually ergonomics and physical therapy. And with some of these changes, in addition to my chiropractor adjustments, what a difference. I was also able to make some changes to my supplement regime with a little bit of inflammation that we found in my neck. And I'm now on a bone marrow supplement and a couple of others to support that inflammation. And things are going way better. Like no pain, no pain. I can go left, right, up, down. It is fantastic. Another big piece, if you remember, if you've been listening for quite some time, I had Entamoeba histolytica, which is a pathogenic parasite which slowly just like annihilates your liver. And I had a ton of cysts when I was infected. And so it was good to kind of get a starting point with an MRI to kind of see how those cysts have either progressed or not. And though there were cysts in the liver, there were many of them, but they were very, very small. And so I'm excited to see over time how this progresses. Another really interesting area that I didn't know I'd be really excited about is that dementia runs in my family. And to be able to get a full brain volume on the scan was really, really good. You can actually keep an eye on this over decades, and the volume of the brain tissue will anticipate dementia. So as soon as that brain volume changes, I mean, I'm hoping it never does, but when it does change, I know to start getting alerted. So overall, I was so impressed with my experience. I am happy about the results. I am happy that I have direction. I am thrilled that Kevin has some direction with his as well. Now, in regards to Kevin's results, we had just a couple of things that came up, like a little bit of sinusitis that I was able to start working through just functionally. When it came to digestive system function, we had a little bit of fat deposition in the liver. So I put him on a couple of supplements for that. So a lot of this is just mild findings that help me as a functional medicine practitioner make adjustments to our protocol so things don't get crazy out of hand. So I am just so happy to be able to share this with all of you. One of the main reasons I wanted to get this done is that cancer runs in my family, and there were a couple of therapies that I wanted to start using for my pain that could grow tumors. And so I wanted to make sure that there was nothing like actively happening. And even just the lump situation and the neck pain situation, I mean, this has made such a difference for me. And I'm so excited to start using this as a benchmark to my health over the next 2, 6, 8, 10 years as we see the progression of aging in my body. So without further ado, let's go over to my interview with Andrew, where we talk more about the technology, the system, all the nitty gritty about Prenuvo and full body MRI scans.
Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going today?
It's great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Before we get into kind of the nitty gritty, I would love for you to officially introduce us. We did your official bio, but why are you doing what you're doing and what lights you up every day?
Oh man, well, it really started because I'm one of these sort of workaholics that don't look after myself. I'm an entrepreneur, and I think it's a trait that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs share. We're sort of investing today for a future that we hope to be around for tomorrow. And I remember waking up in my 40s and thinking, well, how do I know that? How do I know that I will be around? And it was in my own quest for answers to that question that I ran into a radiologist in Canada, of all places, who was doing these whole body scans. And I went there as a patient and had a scan myself, learned more about my health than the health system had told me my entire life. And I just had one of those moments where it was just clear that as an entrepreneur, this should be my mission, to find a way to bring this to as many people as possible. And what keeps me going today is we're now all around the US and opening more locations every month. And it goes from saving, a life once every week to multiple times a day. And that's kind of fuel for the entire company to keep doing what we're doing.
I've heard some incredible stories of individuals who go for their scan and they actually find something that does save their life. Can you talk a little bit about what is found and what that process is like that you've seen?
Sure. So when patients come in, just to maybe center around what the process is, we put them in a machine where we screen them for about 45 minutes. And during that 45 minutes, while they are watching television inside that machine, we are taking about 1.3 billion data points on their body. And we do this by imaging every organ in the body multiple times, filtering for different tissue compositions. And when we see a lesion, if we're talking about cancer inside the body, we're able to use all of these different images to really get a good sense of, is this something that is benign that I don't necessarily need to worry about? Or is this something concerning that I need to go and do additional follow-up tests? And we risk stratify everything that we see. And some small percentage of these lesions we see get worked up. And a reasonable percentage of those end up coming back with them being malignant and generally quite early stage, which is what you want to see in a screening test.
And so is cancer the main goal that you're looking for, or are there other things, or is cancer like the main thing?
Well, it's funny. I kind of think in some ways the service that we do really is two products in one. And a lot of people come because they hear of a life-saving story, either online or a friend or a colleague, a family member, and they're kind of worried about what we might find. But I think people stay because we are able to check comprehensively every organ and diagnose hundreds of conditions and really give folks a real good sense of how the way they're living their life is impacting the underlying physiology of their body. And this is information that can often precede sort of chronic disease by 10, 15, 20 years. So it's such tremendous information to empower people to make changes in their lives.
It's so true. I know with my scan, I've been dealing with neck pain for quite some time, and the scan actually showed a little bit of arthritis in my neck. And when I shared it with my chiropractor, he's like, see, this is why making the ergonomic changes to your desk are important. And I'd been kind of pushing it off, like as if it's really going to make a difference. And so finally I shifted my desk just a little bit and the neck pain reduced. And even that little change, like just actually seeing it physically and being like, okay, I need to actually put something in place here. And even too, with my chiropractor, now knowing exactly how to adjust me has been, he said, this is so great that you have these images. And every couple of months, I'll just go back to them and make sure that we have the correct treatment plan in place. And so those little tweaks I know have already made such a big difference for me.
Well, I have the same problem, and I now work on a walking treadmill desk. So I try and walk a couple of hours every day, and I spend most of the time standing up, and my neck pain has completely gone away. And we've imaged my neck successfully from one year to the next, and we see these problems not only sort of arrest, but start to reverse. So, I think it's just really exciting that there are these little lifestyle tweaks that you can make that can have such a profound impact on your life. Maybe as you get older in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, where mobility is so important for longevity.
Exactly. So earlier you mentioned risk stratify everything that you see. Can you talk about what that means, the risk stratify?
Yeah, here we're using, in some cases, existing stratification approaches that are well adopted in clinical practice. So, for example, when we image the prostate, I guess not a lot of your listeners will have prostates, but there's a internationally accepted standard for how you classify lesions in the prostate. And similarly, there are for thyroid, for breast, and different parts of the body. We developed one together with an international group of researchers called OncoRads. That is a classification system for lesions that we find no matter where they are in the body. And that's slowly being adopted in other practices around the world. And the goal there is to really understand, okay, if this is, let's say, a 2 out of 5, then the likelihood that this is a malignant lesion is like less than 1%. If there's a 4 or 5, then the risk is much higher. And we need to do some follow-up testing just to confirm exactly what it is that we're seeing.
And so when we're sitting in this machine, it's an MRI. I found myself, the hardest part of it was staying still, actually, for that long of a period of time. That was the most challenge for me. But I know that there are a lot of concerns over radiation. Can we just nip this in the bud right now? When we're going through a scan, are we subjecting ourselves to radiation?
There's no radiation. There's no ionizing radiation at all. And this is really a throwback to 20 years ago. There were a number of companies that were offering CT screening. And you could sometimes get this in a shopping mall. And there are still in some parts of the country people offering CT-based screening. And that's CT is ionizing radiation. So for every scan you do, there's a slight increase in cancer risk. And we just think that's not the right way to be screening for cancer.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Okay, so we go through this scan. And then normally in a regular MRI is just one radiologist or maybe a group of radiologists looking over the results. And how does that differ from what you guys are doing?
So we typically have one radiologist that's the primary reader of someone's entire whole body scan. We've trained them on whole body radiology, and then they're supported by a community of radiologists that every hour are talking about things that they see and helping each other out. And in that community, we have specialists in breast imaging, in neurology, and in different parts of the body. And collectively, they sort of like bring the best to every person whose scan that we're reading.
So I read somewhere, or maybe it was somebody online, talking about how Prenuvo was using some sort of AI technology. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that factors into the review of results, or where that factors in, or if it does?
Yeah, a lot of the AI that we're working on is still at a research phase. There's 3 areas where AI is really interesting. The first is in helping to speed up the time it takes to scan a patient. When I went and got my first scan, it was an hour and a half, and now it's about 45 minutes. And a lot of that is due to some of the underlying AI in image acquisition. The second area is really using AI as almost like a second look to the radiology that the radiologists are doing. And here we are working on models that help diagnose conditions in most organs of the body. And then the third area is an area that I'm most excited about, really, is using AI to identify really small changes in time, changes in what we're seeing longitudinally. And so humans are not really good at identifying these little tiny small changes, perhaps in your arthritic spine or in visceral fat content in the body, for example, whereas AI is quite good at being able to quantify those and sort of measure from these small changes from one time period to the next. So those are the three areas we're focused on. A lot of it needs to go through FDA, so that takes automatically a decent amount of time. But we're really excited about the potential for AI to really bring down the cost of the scan, make it faster and faster, and make it more accurate.
Speaking of cost, I know that, so I'm originally from Canada, and both my parents have gone through some pretty significant health challenges over the last couple of years. And getting the healthcare system to agree to send them, even for a small MRI in some small location of the body, is like pulling teeth. And if we need to pay out of pocket, I know my mom needed her, I think it was just like her neck or something small, an MRI, and it was like $4,000 or something crazy. Can we talk about just what you see in the landscape when it comes to these sorts of scans and how you guys have been able to offer the prices that you are offering?
Well, I'm originally from Australia, so I also come from a similar social medicine system. And although I work in US healthcare, I still find it a pretty Byzantine environment. I know that before, there are other places that do diagnostic quality whole body imaging that were around before us. And these were typically the large tertiary hospitals. And they did it for cancer predisposition patients. So people that had a genetic syndrome that meant that they're absolutely going to get cancer multiple times in their life. And it was just a question of where and when. And those scans typically were paid for by insurance and cost, $20,000, $50,000, in some cases $100,000. So when we started screening folks, we wanted to offer that at a price that, although still can be, we're working to bring it a lot cheaper, is something that many more people can afford. And you're right. Oftentimes I'll meet a patient in the lobby of one of our clinics, and I'll say, "Well, why are you here?" And they say, "Well, I have this back pain, and to get a single body part back MRI was going to cost me anyhow $2,000. So why not spend just a tiny bit more and look at the entire body in one go?"
Yes, absolutely. And would you say that just the MRI itself is the idea of using these scans as preventative measures, like a newer idea within the health space? Like, is this a new thing or not so much?
It is new in the last 10 years. And I think that's because the machines have got better and we can scan a lot faster than we used to. MRI was always the best imaging modality for soft tissue anywhere, but it was slow and therefore quite expensive. So as it's sped up, it's become less expensive to deliver. And then secondly, there's just such tremendous innovation in the MRI space. Every month there's new papers, exploring new sequences for cardiac MR or for using MRI machines to start to look at amyloid in the brain. Or every time there's a new conference, there are hundreds of people presenting new ideas about how to use these machines. So it's a really cool time to be working in that technology.
Okay, so are you saying that it's not necessarily that the machines themselves are changing, but the way that we interpret the data is changing, or kind of a mixture of both?
It's a mixture. The machines are getting more powerful. They're getting supported by AI. When you come in and get a scan, we put these, we call them coils on your body that picks up the signal that we turn into an image. And those coils, there's a lot of innovation there. And different frequency coils can actually listen to different elements in the periodic table as you're lying there. So people are exploring those to measure, for example, sodium in the brain, which is an important measure of brain activity. So there's just lots of cool stuff. It involves hardware, it involves software, it involves AI. Our goal really as a company is to explore all of that and see what we can then bring to the scans that we provide for our patients.
So what you're saying is when I need to get my next scan, I think it's in 2 to 3 years, it might be very different or more detailed or those sorts of things?
Yeah, I can talk to a couple of areas that we're actually focusing on ourselves. One is in cardiac imaging. So we're able to, the heart is quite fuzzy on the images that we are taking right now. And that's because you're breathing and your heart is beating at the same time. So it just takes too long to acquire really, really detailed images. But there are new techniques that enable us, we hope, to provide much greater insight into someone's cardiovascular health during these scans. And another area is really trying to understand a lot of the biomarkers of chronic sort of metabolic conditions. So we're able to now measure visceral fat volumetrically ever in the body, liver fat to 2 decimal points, pericardial fat, so the fat around the heart muscle obviously is highly correlated with heart attacks. So these are some of the things that are coming down the path, and I hope we'll have them by the time you come back.
That's really exciting.
Paleo Valley's 11th anniversary sale is here, and it's their best sale ever. There are 2 ways to cash in on this anniversary celebration. Option number 1 is subscribe and save. You can lock in 20% off all Paleo Valley products for life, plus get an additional 15% off today's order, plus a free gift with your purchase today. Option number 2 is a one-time order. If you're not ready to subscribe, this is the route to go. You can get 15% off plus a free gift with your one-time order. Head on over to paleovalley.com/Leanne to take advantage of this incredible offer. Don't miss out on the chance to stock up on your favorite Paleo Valley products and enjoy fantastic savings and a free gift. Saving ends September 9th. Go to paleovalley.com/Leanne to start saving.
So let's go through the type of individual that the scan might be beneficial for. Like just thinking about my scan, and one of the main reasons, there were a couple of reasons why I wanted to get a scan. One is that my father has had cancer multiple times, and I just wanted to make sure all was well. The second being, I've been dealing with a lot of sinus, upper respiratory issues, like stuff happening in my neck, and I just wasn't sure, and nobody could provide insight. And so just thinking about, I had kind of gone the distance with the resources that I had, and I was just looking for some other answer that would give me something that I hadn't gotten before. And so that's kind of what drove me to want to get a scan. But are there other individuals or stories that you're hearing of individuals, like what's driving people and who makes a good candidate to get a scan?
Well, I think you sort of hit on the 2 most important categories. One are, we have a lot of folks that, for whatever reason, have a higher risk of cancer and disease. That might be because they formerly had cancer, or it might be because they have a strong family history of cancer. And for them, not knowing is like causing anxiety. And so the screening can really help give peace of mind. The second category also that I guess you described yourself as being in is, people that might have symptoms and they're not feeling like they're getting answers from the health system. Now, more often than not, these are sort of indeterminate symptoms. Classic examples might be people have headaches or migraines frequently, or particularly with women, like abdominal pain. What's normal abdominal pain? What's abnormal abdominal pain? What do I do if I feel like it's abnormal, but my doctor's not paying attention to me? So that's the second category. I guess the third category are people that really just want to stay on top of health. Like they're fit, they're interested in living as long as possible, and they don't want to wait until symptoms present to get checked out. And these are folks, I think the best analogies are like people that go to the dentist every 6 months. They don't wait until they have tooth pain. They just want to stay on top of anything. And doesn't mean they won't need a filling, but they're much less likely to need a root canal. And we're trying to do that same thing for the rest of the body that dentists do for teeth.
I was in Canada recently, and I realized, because we have that healthcare that we do, I grew up going to the dentist every 6 months. I just thought that that's what people did. And when you're in Canada, everyone has really gorgeous, well taken care of teeth. And I'm not used to seeing that now, traveling as much as I do, and people don't go to the dentist as much. And it's so true. I will always be an individual that goes to the dentist every 6 months, because I'd rather just have somebody else make sure that everything's a-okay, and waiting until sometimes those health issues kind of quote unquote creep up on you, and they kind of marinate in your body for years and years and years. And I never want to be in a position where my health is out of my control and I feel like I don't have a say in what's happening. And so I find, even for individuals, which you say, that are more fearful about the answers that could come up, like the conversation we're having, we touched on the C word, cancer. Sometimes when people hear that, it brings up a lot of like, I'm not sure I want to know. Like, I'm good not knowing. Do you see people come in that are a little bit fearful about what they might see in the results of the tests?
100%. I mean, I can even speak to my own experience. When I went and got my first test, I remember going out for dinner the night before, going to a nice restaurant saying, well, who knows, like my life might change completely tomorrow. So I think that's totally natural to feel fearful. I think it's important to recognize that fear really comes, it's a consequence of having a healthcare system that's very reactive. And when you have a reactive healthcare system, most everything is diagnosed at an advanced stage. So of course we're afraid. And I think for me, the most empowering thing, having done the scan, was just this notion that, well, now if I do this routinely, I never need to feel that fear ever again. But it's a totally natural thing. And I've walked into clinics, I've seen people like too afraid to get out of the change room to go and get the scan from time to time. And, we do our best to make people feel really comfortable and have an environment that doesn't feel like a hospital, doesn't trigger some of that, those feelings of stepping into like a medical facility. But yeah, I think it's a normal thing. And even for us as a company, like trying to figure out how to help people through those fears absolutely is an important sort of part of our patient experience.
I'm glad you touched on it not feeling like a medical establishment, because in my head, like preparing, because you prepare like, what's it going to be like? Where am I going to put my clothes? Are they going to give me a place to put my jewelry? And I walked in, first of all, I was really surprised at how many people were there. I didn't think that this was like a place where there would be quite a few people, but there were quite a few people like comfortably there, but I was not expecting that. And secondly, I had like my own room where I put my things and then I locked it. And that was just so different from, here's the gown, put this on, lock your stuff up in this locker. And so it just had a very different feel from the very beginning, from the snacks to the place where I put my things. So it really didn't have that same medical feeling like at all, actually.
Yeah, no. And the real motivator for that is this idea that we don't want your visit to trigger that anxiety that you might feel in a health facility. So as a result, it feels a bit more concierge-y, but really the intent is really just to help sort of moderate fear and anxiety. And I guess the consequence of that is like we have nice snacks and the environment is cool and people don't dress like their doctors and there's no white walls and hopefully that's working.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone was really friendly, took all my jokes really well, had really good pace with me. So it was good. It was good. From a preventative standpoint, let's say we go in for our first scan, we get the results. How often should we be doing this from a preventative standpoint? Like, what's your vision with that? And how do you guys pick out how often to go for scans?
Yeah, it's actually a hard one to answer. And it's one that we often have a lot of internal debate around. A lot of cancer and disease is sort of follows like a binomial distribution in the statistics, which is, the longer you wait, the more likely there's going to be, something bad that comes along. And so obviously the more frequently someone gets a scan, the more likely they are to be free of advanced disease. We have a lot of patients come in once a year. We have patients that come in once every 2 years. And if there's anything that we see that's concerning, we make sure that we note on patients' reports, what frequency would we recommend that they return. But the goal, I think, one day is that this is a test that you do every year. It costs a lot less than it does today because it's covered by insurance. It's just a foundational part of like managing your healthcare, like getting a routine blood test.
That would be incredible. Like as a functional medicine practitioner, if each of my clients had a full body scan and we did that once a year, it would be incredible. Like I would be so happy if I could look at their blood work and some of their other functional tests along with the scan. That would just be so cool to even track. The individual that went through my results was even talking about the fact that we can track the volume of my brain because I had concerns with dementia and that could be tracked over time so I could see kind of how that's evolving. Even those little things, that would be so interesting.
We try hard to sort of future-proof the scan, and the brain is one example of that. We did a sequence on you that is typically only done on Alzheimer's patients. It's a very, very detailed brain scan that enables us to look at all the regions of the brain and understand longitudinally how they're changing. And we don't yet quite present that back to the patient, but the goal at one point is to do so. And now in your case, you've already had a baseline scan. So even if that takes a year or two to sort of be ready, we can still go back in time and compare you against you. It's also great for research, by the way, because if we see patients that perhaps have had some sort of change in their bodies, they might have been diagnosed with diabetes in the intervening period, or they might have had brain volume loss. We can now go back to the early scans and actually learn, are there biomarkers that are hidden here that would help us identify these conditions a lot earlier? And I think through that, we're going to help further sort of our understanding of human health.
That's so exciting. Do you sometimes sit back and get really excited over where this could go? Like I see the giddiness kind of like in your face. Did I get that right? Like I just saw this is a big deal. Like this could be huge.
Yeah, no one has taken the sort of number of sort of comprehensive health images of people than Prenuvo. And every day that grows. And I feel like we're really scratching the surface, even as a company. I mean, we're working really hard. I think we're 400 or 500 people now, manning clinics and getting people's reports back. And, we're probably scratching about 5% of the data that we're able to collect. And I think it's super exciting to think what insights might be sort of lying there waiting to be uncovered.
Yes, absolutely. So can we talk a little bit about the customer experience or the patient experience? I know that when I was sitting in the machine, that was fine. Like I said, the hardest thing for me was to stay still. I was surprised how much my body just absolutely needed to move. But once I got past that and just distracted me with the Netflix, that was fine. Then I waited a couple of weeks. My results came in. I had a chance to go through them just individually and just write down some questions. Then somebody called me and we went through the results together and helped me understand the report a little bit more. As a functional medicine practitioner, I already kind of had a pretty good sense of what I was looking at. But for the individual that's not medically trained, do they have to have concerns about, okay, now I have this report. Now I need to find somebody to tell me what this report is telling me and what I do about it?
Yeah. I mean, to start with, we have a internal process that I don't think you experience, which is if we find something that's very concerning, we obviously reach out to the patient and their physician, if they have one, and sort of go through that in a slightly different way to someone that has, what we would call, quote unquote, kind of a normal report, like a report. Everyone has findings, but there's no findings that require urgent attention or are necessarily life-threatening. So we do have a different system in place depending on what we're seeing. Most patients talk to one of our nurse practitioners and they've seen hundreds of these scans. So they're really able to answer the vast majority of questions that come up. Some people that are huge into longevity, or they might be physicians, I mean, we probably can't do as good a job as they can in sort of looking up their own symptoms and looking at their report and sort of doing their own investigations. But we wanted to make sure that there's someone that everyone can talk to so that they have some context about what we've found and know what to do next.
Can you talk a little bit about the app and just, I know for myself, there were a couple of takeaways where I had to find a specialist. Specifically, I'm working with an ear, nose, and throat right now. They were very resistant to even look at my phone for the images. So I had to print out the report and blah, blah, blah. But can you tell us about the viewing of the app and kind of how that works with the reporting too?
Yeah, it's one of the other things I learned in this company is that as soon as doctors started requesting images, we're like, okay, let's email them to you. I'll give them on a USB kit. Oh no, we need to have them on a CD. So we had to go and buy CD machines for all of our clinics so that we could print these things out and send them to doctors. So, the health system is a little bit antiquated, and that's probably why you're seeing this resistance. It's a work in progress in a sense. As we do more and more of these scans, more doctors are becoming familiar with what we do. And then secondly, we're starting to learn what primary care providers and specialists sort of get what we're doing. And we're starting to more proactively funnel patients to physicians and specialists that we think are going to do a good job in following up these findings and not give you a blank stare when they see that you've got a scan at Prenuvo.
I haven't had that experience at all. It was actually interesting. Every ear, nose, and throat that I contacted, I was able to tell them exactly what the MRI said, what I was dealing with in absolutely every case, because I called probably every ENT in my area to find the right one. They were like, let me just chat with the doctor and I'll get back to you. What's your phone number? And they would just chat with the doctor. This client is presenting with XYZ and she wants to know blah, blah, blah. And so I was able to kind of vet the doctors initially just like that with the results that I had instead of booking an initial consult and showing them all the things. So it actually probably saved me a good amount of money trying to find a doctor that would be willing to help with the boundaries and things that I had set for myself. So I think where I've found the most challenge is that most were unwilling to view the images digitally. I have had to print off the scans using FedEx and a printing service because initially I had printed them off in black and white on my printer. That wasn't good enough. So I think that has been the challenge, I would say, for me, is just the paper that I've had to carry around. But my chiropractor was very open to the digital image and using the app, which was cool.
And I think once you get beyond it, though, there's something really important about MRI images, which is every single practitioner has seen MRI images before. It's a modality that's really well understood. And the images that we took of your head, for your ENT problem are not any different to the images that you would have got if you just did a dedicated sinus exam. And so, that you can't hide from a picture. At least when you get the right modality to show it to your practitioner, they really sort of have to follow it through. And I think that's different there's a lot of other emerging tests like blood tests for cancer and things like this, where a lot of practitioners don't really know how to interpret these things.
Yes, that's been my experience. Every practitioner where I've shown the images to know exactly what to do and what other tests to run if they need to. But everyone's been really thrilled with, it just takes away a lot of the trying to say, but there's something wrong. I don't know what to do. Help me. Because that was what I was against for years and years and years, just trying to find a solution. So I couldn't agree with you more. We talked on this a little bit earlier, but where do you see things going over the next 10, 20 years? I know that you've dabbled in a whole bunch of other businesses and done a whole bunch of things. I'm sure you're applying much of what you learned in those other areas to Preneuvo. Where do you want to take this?
Well, I still think we're really at the beginning of the journey. When we started 5 years ago, we were mainly word of mouth for consumers. Today, we now have hundreds of physicians that refer us. We're starting to talk to enterprise about finding ways to incorporate Prenuvo scans in benefits that would be offered for employees. We're having conversation with insurance companies. I mean, the health system doesn't move very fast. And so there's a big roadmap ahead of us to arrive at a point where these are inexpensive and fast and available to everyone, no matter where they are. So you'll see us continue to grow our clinic footprint in the US and internationally. We're opening our first clinics in Australia and in the UK within the next sort of 6 to 12 months. We are just opening a clinic now in Buffalo, really to serve the Toronto market, where it's been quite difficult to get a clinic open there. And internally, we're reinvesting pretty much everything that we sort of bring in from these scans in research and development on the AI side and on making the sequences better and faster, and on investing in a really, really incredible clinical practice so that we can continue to make this the best screening exam that you can do anywhere.
That's amazing.
I want to share something that's truly transformed my daily routine and overall well-being. Timeline Nutrition's MitoPure supplement. I've been taking it for about a year now, and I can honestly say it's been a game changer. I first heard about MitoPure through a trusted friend who raved about its benefits, and I decided to give it a try. Let me tell you, I am so glad that I did. The energy boost I get is incredible. Not only do I sleep better, but I can also push harder in the gym and recover faster. There was a point where I unintentionally ran out of MitoPure and I was without it for about 45 days. The difference was undeniable. I felt more fatigued, my workout suffered, and my overall energy levels just weren't the same. For me, taking MitoPure is all about investing in my long-term health and muscle strength. I want to be able to hike, run, lift, play, even into my 90s, and MitoPure helps make that possible. Now, here are a few things you should know about MitoPure and why it's so effective. Timeline, the company behind MitoPure, is a Swiss-based life science company and a global leader in urolithin A research. They spent 10 years developing this product. Urolithin A is a powerful postbiotic that you can't get from your diet alone. MitoPure is the first product to offer a precise dose of urolithin A to upgrade your mitochondrial function, increase cellular health, and improve muscle strength and endurance. Think of MitoPure as a little Pac-Man in your cells, chomping up damaged mitochondria that make you feel old and tired and recycling them into new healthy ones. Whether you prefer the convenient soft gels or the berry powder that you can mix into your yogurt or smoothie, MitoPure has a form that fits your lifestyle. And the best part, Timeline is offering 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Just go to timeline.com/KDP. That's TIMELIN.com/KDP for 10% off your first order.
I'm sure that you hear all sorts of stories and you probably do a lot of these types of interviews. And so you're hearing people's feedback too. What are some of the stories that you've heard either from individuals that you have interviewed you or just regular patients coming in, and stories that maybe your team is updating you on? Like, what strikes you?
Well, I would say we're a pretty mission-driven company. So we use Slack to communicate, and we have a channel that's called Why We Do This. And no matter who talks to a patient about their experience post-scan, particularly where we've made a finding that could be life-saving, we sort of anonymize it and we put it on that channel for everyone in the company to read. And that's sort of the fuel that just keeps us going. And I mean, I'm just trying to think about some of the examples I've had just in the last couple of days. I had one person who messaged me on LinkedIn saying that after months of convincing her husband to come in for a scan, they made it happen. He came in, was asymptomatic, and we found a really aggressive thyroid cancer. And most thyroid cancer actually is not necessarily aggressive, but this particular variant was. And it was definitely a life-saving finding. And they told us that they'd told, probably brought in 25 people to get a scan through telling their story. And I just think, these are happening every day. We had a lung cancer, a young woman in her early 40s that had never smoked a day in her life. And we found stage 1 lung cancer last week. And we're seeing this a lot, actually. The sort of a fast growing category of people diagnosed with lung cancer are females that have never smoked. And we don't quite know why. We think it's something environmental. Every so often we find cancers that might have been missed on mammogram or on colonoscopy, or we find a prostate cancer in a patient that may not have an elevated PSA. So there's just multiple stories now every week. I think, and the real takeaway I get when I read these is, wow, how do I convince more people to come in and not necessarily just wait to listen to the symptoms as they present? Because a lot of these cancers, kidney cancer grows on average 2 centimeters a year. And we're finding like 10 centimeter kidney cancers that are still, thankfully, confined to the kidney. But that's been in their body growing for, 5 or 6 years. The average age of a pancreatic cancer, unfortunately, at the time of death, there was a study on this, is about 7 or 8 years. And that means we probably think it's, detectable for 2, 3, 4 years while it's still localized to the pancreas. So, the real lesson I've taken away from this is just, you need to look under the hood, even if everything feels fine, even if the check engine light is not sort of lit up, because it's such a life-saving thing to catch some of these conditions early.
What do you think is driving these individuals to get a scan? Do you think it's just not knowing about the service? Because I know I was just randomly going through Instagram one day and a girl named Jessica was like, I just got a whole body scan. I'm like, hold on a minute. I didn't even know that this was an option. Do you think that it's more just people don't know that the resource exists, or why are they walking in for the first time finally to get this done?
Yeah, that's the single biggest hurdle really is, people often ask me, well, who's your competitors? And I say the biggest competition we have is, just people not knowing that this solution even exists. And we spend a lot of time and effort and really money trying to educate folks and get the word out. And it's a slow process. Word of mouth is slow, particularly in the health space. And even when you think that everyone has heard about you in your circle, there are other people that aren't on Instagram or, aren't part of the sort of Silicon Valley echo chamber or may not be following Kim Kardashian, and for them, they hear about it for the first time. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know that exists. And so we're, again, very early in that journey. Probably fewer than 5% of people in the US probably know these scans even exist.
Yeah, so much to do on that front. Well, I hope that the individuals that needed to hear this story today heard it and they get excited about it. I know that, like I said, when I was just randomly looking through Reels, I was really excited to come upon it, and I hadn't heard anyone talking about it. I had no idea you guys existed, and I'm pretty good at staying on top of things. And so I was just so excited to have you on and share your story and get more people to take this seriously, because it's very much like you said, the blood work, the scan, having both of these on a yearly basis, game changer, absolutely, for our health. So thanks again for coming on. Do you feel like there is an area that perhaps we didn't touch on today that you want to make sure that we touch on?
Well, I'm really excited for, I guess, spreading the word to your audience in some ways, because I know, and there's so much research about just how much sort of health discrimination there is against women in particular, that, it's so hard to get up the courage to get something checked out when you feel something is not right. And then to be faced with a medical institution that, normalizes a lot of these problems and maybe doesn't do the testing that they should be doing. I think there's just so much good that we can do. It sort of becomes an equalizer, these exams, because again, once you have it and you get those results, there's really no one that can ignore you.
Yes, couldn't agree with you more. Thanks again for coming on, Andrew, and I wish you all the best. And I will be sure to include links to the Preneuvo scan, including a discount offering in the show notes. So if you're unsure of where to look, just head on over to prenuvo.com/Leanne, or I will include the link in the show notes today for everybody. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed our time with Andrew. Again, the link that you can go to for $300 off your whole body scan is prenuvo.com/Leanne. That's prenuvo.com/Leanne. See you back here next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit Podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit Podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit Podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.